On the 30th of July, 2005, the world woke up to shocking news. Dr. John Garang de Mabur, the charismatic rebel leader turned vice president of Sudan and a key architect of peace in a war-torn nation, had died in a helicopter crash. The announcement, vague and sudden, stunned millions. Just weeks earlier, Garang had been hailed as a symbol of hope after decades of civil war. For the people of South Sudan, he wasn't just a leader, he was a legend. But as the dust settled, troubling questions emerged. The timing, location, and political implications of his death raised eyebrows. Could it have been an accident, as claimed? Or was it the final act in a carefully concealed political assassination? In this deep dive, we unravel the story behind the crash, facts, suspicion, and speculation, and explore whether John Garang's death was a tragic mishap or the result of a hidden plot. John Garang was born in 1945 in the Bor region of southern Sudan. A Dinka by ethnicity, he spent his early years herding cattle before gaining an education in Tanzania and the United States. He would later study at Iowa State University and earn a PhD in agricultural economics. But Garang's true calling lay not in academia, but in revolution. In 1983, as Sudan's second civil war erupted, Garang founded the Sudan People's Liberation Army, SPLA. Over the next 2 decades, he led a brutal and complex insurgency against the Islamic government in Khartoum, seeking autonomy and eventually independence for South Sudan. Though labeled a warlord by some, to his supporters, he was a liberation hero, a strategic visionary who could speak fluently with world leaders and rebels alike. His influence peaked in 2005 when, after long negotiations, he signed the Comprehensive Peace Agreement with President Omar al-Bashir. The CPA ended the 21-year war and positioned Garang as Sudan's first vice president. For the first time in history, a South Sudanese leader stood poised to change the future of both North and South Sudan. Then 3 weeks later, he was dead. On July 30th, 2005, John Garang boarded a Ugandan presidential Mi-172 helicopter after a meeting with Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni at his Rwakatora ranch. The helicopter was to take him to new site, a remote SPLA stronghold in southern Sudan. The weather was turbulent, the skies clouded with rain and wind. At around 6 p.m., the helicopter vanished from radar. For hours, its whereabouts remained unknown. The Sudanese government delayed releasing any statement. Not until the next day, July 31st, did officials confirm what many feared. The wreckage of the helicopter had been found near the Ugandan-Sudanese border, and all 7 passengers, including Garang, were dead. The official cause was attributed to bad weather and pilot error. But questions emerged immediately. Garang's death triggered riots across southern Sudan. Thousands believed the crash was no accident. Supporters took to the streets, some wielding weapons, others torching buildings. The SPLA tried to restore calm, but suspicion had already taken root. Why did the Sudanese government delay confirming Garang's death? Some suggested the delay was used to fabricate a plausible explanation. The Mi-172 helicopter, although operational, lacked modern avionics and weather navigation tools. Why was such a high-ranking leader flying in this particular model? The flight deviated from the originally reported route. Why? Why did Garang travel at dusk, despite known storm warnings? Uganda's president, a longtime ally of Garang, personally provided the helicopter. Some accused him of setting a trap, others defended him as a scapegoat. Did the northern government, particularly hardliners in Bashir's circle, fear that Garang's rise to national leadership threatened their grip on power? These questions, combined with Sudan's volatile political history, made for fertile ground for conspiracy theories. An official investigation, led by Sudanese, Ugandan, and international representatives, including Russian aviation experts, concluded in August 2005 that the crash was caused by poor visibility and a combination of pilot fatigue and miscalculation. But not everyone was convinced. Some local villagers near the crash site claimed to have heard an explosion before the helicopter came down. Others reported seeing aircraft circling before impact, raising suspicions of foul play or missile fire. The helicopter was not equipped with a black box flight recorder. Investigators had to rely on fragmentary evidence, including debris and weather patterns. Critics argued that the lack of data left too much room for manipulation. Members of the SPLM, Sudan People's Liberation Movement, complained they were sidelined during the investigation. They demanded a full international inquiry, but their request was quietly shelved. The US, UK, and UN, all instrumental in the CPA, called for transparency but avoided aggressive questioning. Realpolitik, some believe, outweighed the need for truth. To understand the theories of foul play, one must examine who might have benefited from Garang's death. Garang was popular not only in the South, but also among marginalized northern communities. His ideology threatened Sudan's Arab Islamic elite. His death ensured the continuation of Bashir's regime. Within the SPLM, Garang's leadership was not without enemies. Salva Kiir, his deputy, was more conservative and less interested in national unity. Kiir's rise to power after Garang's death may have benefited factions opposed to Garang's centralized vision. Garang had cultivated ties with Eritrea, Ethiopia, and the US, alliances that irritated regional power players, including Egypt, which feared the creation of an independent South Sudan would disrupt Nile water politics. Garang opposed exploitative oil contracts signed between Sudan and Chinese companies. He hinted at renegotiating deals in favor of transparency and equity. Was this a red flag for shadowy corporate interests? President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda found himself in a complicated position. A close friend of Garang and longtime backer of the SPLA, Museveni provided the ill-fated helicopter and personally mourned the death. But he too faced questions. Why did he allow a night flight over mountainous terrain with limited visibility? Why didn't he assign a more modern aircraft? Did he trust the Sudanese airspace, or was he pressured to act quickly? Museveni responded by suggesting that some elements might have been behind Garang's death, a remark that added fuel to the fire. However, he never pursued a full investigation, and his comments faded into the background. Garang's vision of a united secular Sudan died with him. Salva Kiir, his successor, shifted the SPLM's focus from national reform to full secession. Within 6 years, South Sudan voted overwhelmingly for independence, officially becoming the world's newest nation in 2011. But the dream soon soured. Civil war, tribal clashes, and corruption plagued South Sudan's birth. Many wondered, would Garang have held the nation together? Would he have negotiated better terms for independence? Or was his charisma too strong, too central to sustain long-term governance? For all his military flaws, Garang had both national and international credibility, something his successors struggled to match. Conspiracy theories continue to swirl, but definitive proof remains elusive. Some believe the helicopter was sabotaged, mechanically or via a planted explosive. Others point to surface-to-air missiles, noting the region's militarized history. Yet no conclusive forensic evidence has surfaced. A more nuanced theory suggests passive conspiracy, wherein parties allowed the crash to happen by not intervening despite knowing the risks. In a region rife with secret deals, proxy conflicts, and shadow diplomacy, the line between accident and intent often blurs. Despite the tragedy, Garang's name continues to inspire. Statues of him rise in Juba. Streets and schools bear his name. His speeches, once calls to arms, are now read like scripture. To many South Sudanese, his death marked the end of hope. To others, it signaled the beginning of a long and painful road towards self-determination. His widow, Rebecca Garang, and son Mabior Garang de Mabior remained politically active, both calling for a deeper investigation into his death and a return to his political ideals. The death of John Garang remains one of modern Africa's most tragic and mysterious political events. Whether his helicopter was felled by rain, error, or design, the impact of his absence is undeniable. His death created a vacuum too vast to fill. In the void grew a fragile South Sudan, a wounded Sudan, and a haunted legacy. The silence that followed, by governments, allies, and institutions, speaks louder than any official report. Until a true, transparent investigation is conducted, the question will remain, did Garang fall from the sky by accident, or was he pushed from history by hidden hands? Only history, if not silenced, will tell. Subscribe to Shadows of Power Africa for more powerful stories the world tried to bury.